Hey everybody, Dustin Box and I have been friends for almost 20 years now, and I just love it whenever we get to hang out. And so this is just another moment where we're just laughing a lot and kind of encouraging each other and about just life and what we've been learning and thinking about. So I hope this encourages you too. We kind of naturally landed on the topic of community. Community has just been such an important topic for both of us, especially lately. And so Dustin and his wife Savannah, their family, they live in Maine and they are pastors. And Dustin also just opened up a Brazilian Jiujitsu studio, and he's going to kind of talk about how all these elements in his life, and in my life too, with my family, and just how the heart behind it all, like what we hope for, is to help people kind of connect with each other, connect ultimately with God in a healthy way, and for us to be community, for us to really do this life thing that God told us to do, called loving God and loving one another. What does it look like? How do we do it? And how to keep encouraging each other, how to do that well. So hope this encourages you too.
It's been really awesome. I think what's been amazing is it's opened the door into our community in a way that nothing else really would have. I mean, obviously, we preach the message of being a light in the darkness and salt in the earth, and having friends and community, like and relationships in the community, and if we didn't have this outlet, most of our world honestly would be at church, which is not bad. I'm called to the church. I'm called to lead and pastor, be minister. So there's not I don't feel bad about that at all. But it gives us this connection to where people are at in life.
Yeah.
Our rhythm and our workflow just wouldn't provide, aside from maybe an interaction at a grocery store or your server at Applebee's or something, which those times are amazing. You know what I mean? Like sharing the gospel or praying for someone or doing something like that is absolutely amazing. But this is opened up the door in some really incredible ways, man. There's just a string of testimonies over the last few months that has just been incredible, honestly, like really amazing.
Wow.
With just certain families and kids that, like I'm teaching the kids classes, and moms are hanging out, and Savannah's there hanging out with moms. They come into the house a lot of times and hang out with her inside during class. She's building a relationship with them. She's like hearing their issues and sitting with them, inviting them in. And then with a few of them, she's gone and done like inner healing appointments.
Oh, I was just gonna ask about that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
because
so
she
she's still,
actually majored in healing art, right? Like
well, no,
art
her
therapy,
major,
art therapy.
well, she didn't major in art therapy. So that would have been
Oh,
her master's degree if she would have continued on
oh,
that.
got it.
So she has a degree in psychology, I think, a bachelor's in psychology, and then she was also doing a lot of art classes, and that
That's
was
right.
but she also does inner healing training. She's been doing inner healing appointments and things like that. So she still does that. She does a ton of art now. She's actually been doing a lot of art lately, and it's been unreal. Like she's actually had a few appointments with people that are not believers, just sitting and actually still inviting Jesus in and walking them through that process.
Oh,
And
wow. That's
just
so cool.
radical transformation, meeting God, you know what I mean? Crying and like repenting and inviting Jesus into their life in these
Yeah.
ways. We've had a few marriages healed just from
Wow.
the dad coming in, the son's in, his behavior is changing at home. The dad lost like 30 pounds. He was pre-diabetic.
Wow.
Officially cleared him from any like pre-diabetes or anything, was totally doing
Yeah.
well. And just out of that, their marriage starts improving. The engagement that the dad has with the kids is improving. Like, and so it's not just the jujitsu, it's the fact that we're like living life with them. So they're asking
Yeah.
questions after class, and we it kind of steps into like a counseling appointment, and we're working through issues and having conversations, and then just loving on families. And honestly, there's a component of allowing our light to shine in a way, just like me and Savannah live in a real vulnerable way with our community.
Sure.
We're pretty open with who we are and our family and our life and our flow. And it just causes a lot of questions and stuff, which just invites us into people's lives in really powerful ways. There's another couple too that's like they're like in this zone of like discovering and finding God, but like they're like now like, hey, they've been living together for like 8 years, you know.
Yeah.
And they sat down with us and like, we want to have like a really healthy marriage, and would you guys walk us through premarital counseling? We want to do this the right way. We want to like fix our, you know, our lives. And like, so there's just like these components that now we get to step in a place that we would have never met these people. You know, we
Yeah.
would have never been invited into their lives in this way.
Yeah.
And it's been really, really amazing. There's like several families now that are going to church, you know,
Yeah.
encountering God just from coming to the gym, they hear I'm an associate pastor somewhere, you know, invite them
Yeah.
to come to church, and like it just, and then they step in and then they just get rocked, you know, totally encountering God's
Yeah.
goodness of, you
Dude,
know,
that's so awesome. It's so
it's really interesting the amount of like purpose and health that individuals have from close-knit communities. It establishes identity, not identity rooted in a wrong place, but actually it establishes personal identity, because it's fundamental to have like close personal relationships that are involved in your life in the daily, that the struggles, the ups and the downs, and it provides a unique sense of purpose and place in the world. And I think, you know, the struggle with social media is that for all the benefits and all the fun and all the awesome connection points that it does bring, what it does is it brings a false sense of hope and connection, because the connection is not actual beyond the screen time. So you shut it off and you still know that you're alone going through whatever storm that you're in the middle of, or
Yeah.
this super exciting thing that just happened. You know what I mean? You're walking outside and you see, like right now, cardinals are flying everywhere, and they're like this fluorescent, almost red. They're so bright against this green
Wow.
background or dirt. And it's like we're sitting in our living room, the kids see it and they're freaking out, and we come running over, and those moments actually provide meaning and substance for people. And so for us, jujitsu has opened the door for that into the community. But this is where like small groups in churches are so critical, if done well and done right. This is what's providing. So whether you have a small group in a church or not, you need to find a close-knit community that you are connected into, that I hate the term sharing life. Like, you know, like we're doing life. It always bothers me. Like, let's do life, bro. You know, like,
Yeah.
because it was never really defined as anything. It just felt cheesy church lingo. It just felt like a pipe dream that people are like selling like some cool thing, you know?
Yeah.
Really what that looks like is the fundamental connection when you're going through something bad and someone sits with you and says, I am enjoying being with you in your distress.
Yeah.
You know,
Good.
I am enjoying being with you in this exciting thing that you're in.
Yeah.
And it's learning how to communicate that. It's learning how to receive that.
I loved how you said how whether we are doing this in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or small groups at church, that intention has to be there of truly, as cheesy as the term sounds, but it's real. We have to do life together. And so I wanted to ask you, like, because I think this is so important, not just for us to remind ourselves, but to share with other people out there. Some people will just go to a small group and think that that's the answer. But what if the small group leader or the small group itself, they don't have that gift or understanding of what that place is supposed to be? It can just become like a checklist, right? Like, I don't know what's wrong. I feel isolated. I don't feel like I have community but I checked off Sunday, checked off men's group, women's group, whatever, where we watched some funny videos and ate snacks and then went home afterwards, right? And then or you know what I mean? So I want to hear your thoughts, because you're actually someone who's doing this super well. So what's like your encouragement, not only to people who are kind of trying to facilitate these kinds of communities, but to people who are looking for them, and how to kind of know when they're not finding it, and to know, well, that's why you're probably not finding it, because it's supposed to actually be like this, not like a checklist. Even if it's called church small groups, sometimes we're the worst at knowing how to do this with each other, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting. You know, connection doesn't happen accidentally. I mean, it does happen accidentally. What I mean is, it doesn't happen like, it doesn't just happen. And so it's interesting helping people understand the difference between, we've all had friends, right? We all know people that seem to intuitively just know how to connect with people. Okay. So you interact with them, you know, like my wife, it feels like somebody like that. Like people that hang out with her, it's just a constant thing that I hear is like, oh my gosh, I just feel so connected with Savannah. You know, like I just feel so safe with her. I just feel like there's just like a natural thing that she has learned. And honestly, in this book that I'm reading right now, it sort of puts language to why there's some people that tend to just have it and are able to do it naturally. But it's a cop out to say it's a talent or a gift or an anointing and an anointing. I think that God does anoint people in that way, but what happens is in church communities, oftentimes we'll use language like, oh, wow, this person's really pastoral and this person's not. And so the person that's not, they just give themselves an out from learning the actual skills of how to connect and be connected with people.
Yeah.
And so with small groups, we're right now, this book is what's beautiful right now where I'm at currently is it's giving me language on how to shift some of our training to equip our small group leaders to better recognize these dynamics and how to engage in them. The life groups that are really successful right now, and the small groups, the impact groups, we have like a few different categories of them. It's because they're led by people that are sort of doing these practices on their own intuitively. It's because they got it when they were little, or they learned it from someone. They were in a community where that place in their heart and their brain was sort of healed and grown, and so they've learned how to sort of instinctually connect with people and sit with people and be in place. You know, connecting with people doesn't always have to look like just sitting and listening to someone's problems. It's actually not. That's not actually what has to happen. You know, and so, you know, I think there's probably two answers. One, if you're leading a small group, learning where connection happens. So it's typically in a couple of places. It's in shared experiences, and it's in the ability to have someone feel heard in conversation or in interactions and things. And so those two skills will go a really long way. Shared experiences, so that's the fun things, the games, the whatevers, and then the skill of learning how to communicate to someone that they've been heard. So it's not that I'm just listening to someone. It's not that I'm just like looking at them or hearing them, and I'm like, oh yeah, I totally got that. Like and internally I can totally be hearing them. But if I'm not sending the signal to the person that I'm hearing them and I'm understanding them, that person will walk away feeling like, what did I just do? I just shared a bunch of stuff and that was rough. You know, we've probably had these interactions where we share our heart and then you walk away like, why did I do that? Like that was just a waste of time. You know, like I just opened my heart and they're kind of like, oh, okay, good, you know, we'll pray for you now. And you leave feeling empty. So those are two big ones. The feeling heard, right? There's some ways to reciprocate and to communicate to someone. There's reflective listening is the category it is, but the way that the way that I've learned to do it, the way that my parents teach us in like marriage counseling and stuff, and so I've adopted it into other circumstances. But it's actually listening for the emotions that someone is communicating over the words that they're using. So the words are important, but their body language, their vocal tone, the animation, the facial expressions, they're communicating the actual emotions that the person is feeling. And oftentimes those will not be consistent with the words they're using. So when you grow in that skill, what happens is, you know, you're telling me a story about something and you're just like, man, I can't believe my wife, like I came home and she said this, and, you know, you're just like bros, you know what I mean? We're talking about whatever life situation. And I'm just like, man, now it'll sound cheesy to start this way, but the tool is just like, what I hear you saying is, but then you don't reflect the words that they used. You reflect the emotions that you heard.
Yeah.
So, man, I hear like, and so now when you get better at it, you don't really use that same phrasing, but it's just like, man, it sounds like you're really angry at your wife for what happened. Yeah, I'm angry, of course, blah 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 blah. And you're like, that it would seem really hard to come home and be shouted at right away. And what ends up happening is the person, they feel known in that interaction.
Sure.
And then you're sitting with them having the conversation. You don't really have to offer advice if you don't want to. Sometimes the conversation doesn't go there. It's not about that. It's about simply understanding and knowing someone in that moment. And it goes a long way. Learning that skill, I have used it in workplace things like non-connection type environments. You know what I mean? Like meetings that were just going off, or I ended up helping mediate in some situations, and I'm watching the missed deals. And so I just kind of like, hey, hang on 1 second. What it sounds like you're trying to communicate right now is, and then I filled in basically the emotions that they were feeling.
Yeah.
You know, like, is that right? And they're like, yeah, that's exactly right. And it completely changed the trajectory of it was the meeting was going off. Let's just be, you know, it was about to go downhill real fast because you have two people just completely missing each other.
Yeah.
And that happened in small groups. So like someone shares something and you can, you know, in a sentence or two, communicate to that person that, wow, like I hear you, you're known, you're seen, we value you. Like all of these feelings are attached to known. And then the shared experience thing is like learning how to plan small groups in such a way that creates shared experiences, whether that's through worship or through communion or these sorts of like, you know what I mean, important places of our Christian walk, or through fun activities. You know, that sense of joy and excitement in doing something together. So
no, that's so good,
two,
man.
like critical pieces, you know.
And so I love what you said. Like, what I hear you're saying right now is joking. Like, no, I love it. You know, I love what you said about how you should feel seen, known, and loved. And I think there's a lot of people who are checking off that list, and not realizing that they're going into places where people might not know the skill of how to just be with people, and like you're saying, how to know what's important in those moments. Yeah,
and I think that's where some of the, like, you know, I tried that, or the church doesn't, you know, there's no connection, or there's like, I don't know, you hear all like these different phrases from people, and it's because they had a certain expectation that the church is supposed to be X, Y, and Z, loving, connect, you know what I mean? I'm supposed to find my place. There's supposed to be community. But people running these groups that actually don't know
sorry.
How community is. No, how community is built and
feeling
stuff.
known, loved, and seen. My dog is whining. All right, here we go. You want to say hi to Dustin? The people who were running these huge music groups or ministries, they might not have been the best at helping people to feel seen, known, and loved.
Yeah.
It was kind of more like their value is based on their skill to provide a service, which would then provide some type of value to that person's goals, which would then bring in more sales and more royalties and money. And then when that was all the world that they knew, that my interaction with ministry or with this successful thing was just business and royalties and what I brought to the table. And once I didn't bring that to the table, I was no longer really in connection at all with these people. And then realizing, wow, that really wasn't even connection at all. I think it's led a lot of these friends of mine to think, well, maybe there wasn't even really a connection there then with God, you know? And I think, So and it relates to what you're saying, because if we miss each other and miss how to do this with each other, I think that can happen. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this happens in church actually quite a bit when, like the idea of community and connection that is meant to be where spiritual formation and growth takes place gets replaced with, or a job gets sold as the community. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like, I'm going to hire you, or you're going to be part of a music group, right? Or you're going to be whatever the definition happens to be, right? We're going to be together, and that like, hey, you're part of this business transaction now because we're going to be selling things.
Yeah.
We want to call it ministry, but it can be ministry. It can be serving. Ministry by definition means serving. So, your musical group or your record label or whatever that happens to be can be ministry. Absolutely. But the problem is the function of it is still in a business transaction sort of way.
Yeah.
And if you ever like make the mistake of putting those two together, that's where a lot of the hurt and disillusionment and brokenness, I think, comes from.
Yeah.
Because I thought we were more than just business partners. I thought we were family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We were doing this thing together, but you just fired me, or you're no longer going to carry me on your label, or you're not going to like use my songs that I've been working on, or I don't know if that makes sense. Like all of a sudden now, and that hurts, that rejection hurts, that business sort of side of things hurts. And, I think for some people, this sort of as where it started as ministry turned into something bigger and continued to grow, the demands of the business side of it continue to grow. And that as that increase happens, like it becomes all consuming for the individual. So there is no other space for the community that should be their foundation, that should be rooted in real life. And so then when that transaction happens, when something takes place, then it's like, well, then that it's all gone, and they have to try to rebuild everything. And that's really painful. It's really hard to do.
I just wish more of my friendships were like that, and I'm just so thankful that we've had that. Like, it's like, it's just so cool. Like, it's weird. Like, I wish it was more common though. Usually I feel like when people face any type of disagreement or conflict, then they just stop being friends. But there's something special about how we didn't, it's not like we never had one of those. We had a lot of interactions like that, but we just always stayed together. You know what I mean? Like it was like covenant almost. Like, I mean, it was like this whole thing that we heard from these circles talking about, like, what would they say? What did they say? Culture of royalty. I'm so sorry. I'm totally
culture of honor.
Culture of honor. Yeah.
Culture of royalty.
That's right. Dude, I don't sound like something like that, but I remember people used to use that in such a strange way. They would say, like, Joe, I know I told you I'd pay you for this, but yeah, I'm not going to, or something. But culture of honor, bro. Culture of honor, right? Like, you're gonna still play, right? You're gonna still help out. I'm like, yeah, culture of honor would tell me to still do that, even though this is confusing and I don't think that was right. Right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, or sorry to take it to this rabbit trail, but like, it would be used in all kinds of interesting ways to kind of like get you to just do things without. But anyways, but
no, it's actually important. No, jokes aside, like, I mean, that's actually like it's a big difference. Culture of honor is not about controlling behavior or getting someone to do it.
Right. Absolutely.
It's about how you treat and perceive people and call them up. It's about the agreement is not the foundation for relationship,
Right.
We can disagree and still honor each other, love each other, engage in relationship, and I think pulling it full circle right back to the connection piece, that like actually understanding fundamentally that community and healthy relationships are not built on solely what we agree on.
Right.
Because if it is, then when we disagree, it means we can't be in relationship.
Yeah.
And so like understanding that it's the conflict, it's the wrestle, it's those things that actually sharpen and refine our character. That is where the character is grown, is the fact that I'm not going to walk away from our friendship because I felt betrayed. I'm going to wrestle. I'm going to come back. I'm going to, and as long as you're not some narcissist or something like, some sociopath or something, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're fighting, you're apologizing, we're working through it. And I'm going to try to stay present in the relationship.
Yeah.
Even in the end, saying, I disagree with how you made these decisions. And I'm not necessarily, I'm just using that as an example, but it's like, but I still love you. We're still friends. We're going to get through this. We're still in relationship, Yeah.
It's so good.
It's a lost piece, I think, for a lot of people, not really understanding how important that is,
Yeah, hugely important. And I think especially for up and coming just generation, right? There's this book someone recommended me. I have to read it. I have it, but I'm gonna read the quote to you. This person said, "It's not doubt that's toxic to faith. It's silence."
Wow.
Yeah. So it's not. It's that there's no place for people to have room to share just disagreement or doubt, and that's what's toxic to faith, right? I just thought it was so powerful. Like, it's talking about the power of warmth, and how, like you're saying, it's just something that we need to come back to remembering again, or just doing for the first time for a lot of us, is how to value relationship, not based on agreement, but based on that God created you, and I think you're awesome, and you're loved, and I might totally tell you to your face that I don't agree with you, and I think you're so wrong and I'm right, but that's not what makes us friends. It's and it's something that we're not seeing. It's very rare to see that right now, but it needs to definitely be taught again, especially if we're doing this stuff where we're hiding behind threads and trolling each other with comments, and we divide ourselves with, if you agree with my comment and give me likes and thumbs up, then we're in an alliance together, and then we're friends. But those other people who think that way, they're now the other side, the enemies, and we can never be together. But it's like Jesus broke all those rules, right, when it came to those kinds of things, right? And so he actually confronted the people who taught this, the Pharisees, right? And called them a brood of vipers, which literally means like the spawn of Satan, right? So it's like, wow, like crazy. And anyway,
well, I think it's also helping people understand that, like, you do need to have some shared interest. You know what I mean? There has to be places of agreement, but it's understanding that the relationship is not rooted on unilateral agreement.
Yeah.
And I think in church, people become nervous or worried when someone is asking questions and wrestling with things and working through doctrine or theology or their walk with God or the realness of God or the faithfulness of God.
Yeah.
And I think that it's important to sort of recognize not just how to handle that, but how to be with people in that place, and still in the end, like, staying in relationship in the middle of that. I think that's where I think some churches do an incredible job. I think some churches don't. I think some communities, I think our church here that we're on staff with is doing from all the different churches I've been involved in and a part of, is doing a great job, is doing a really, really good job with obviously there's a lot of places to grow. But trying to navigate, like, hey, you can have different politics, you can have different ideas, you can have different whatevers, but we're gathering around the central theme of the beauty of Jesus.
Yeah, good.
He's done that. This is what we are gathering together in, and there's space. Like, hey, if you If you want to just sit in your seat during worship, that's fine. If you want to come in front and dance, that's fine. You can, there's space to sort of walk those places out. You know what I mean? But the thing that we are, we're gazing at the beauty of Jesus. We're going to learn about him. We're going to grow together in that place. And I think it becomes a really powerful thing.
No, that's amazing. That's like Psalm 27, the one thing, right? Yeah, that's so good, man. So I'm going to let you go because I know you have to rush off to something. But final words, Dustin. What advice would you give to people right now who feel? I would say a lot of times, like when I interact with people, they might not say they feel isolated, but the more they describe their situation, I would say that they are isolated. But they could definitely say that they feel like they have been hurt by church. What's like some encouragement or not just church, but church experience? What's some encouragement you give to them about, I'm just not going to even phrase the question any more than that. What are some things you'd say? Final word.
Yeah. First off, the first thing is, recognizing that you are hurting. It's healthy, not just trying to sweep it on the rug or move past it or blame, or recognize that hurt is valid, and unaddressed, it turns to bitterness and unforgiveness. And bitterness and unforgiveness, it really does pull you away from connection. It really will shift the course of your life and relationships. And so, the first thing is recognizing hurt, learning to sort of address it, process it in a healthy way. There's this verse in, I think it's in Psalms, but it's just this phrase that has always stuck with me. I don't know the reference because it's not like a big long passage or anything that I've studied, but it's just this one little phrase about, it says, don't, it's a warning. It says, don't remove the ancient boundary stones. And I think the mistake we make sometimes is, as we're going through really deeply painful, deeply traumatic places of life, we tend to look at these ancient boundary stones in our life and shift them and think we need to move them. And what I mean by that is because you were hurt doesn't mean God isn't real. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like that conclusion, that piece, that because you were taken advantage of, or because you were involved in a ministry that just used you for your talents and gifting and sold you on being a family, but was never an actual family. It doesn't mean that God's faithfulness is not still there. It doesn't mean that his love and his goodness isn't still there. And I think, being able to process the hurt in a healthy way, at least for me personally, has enabled me to not move the boundary stones of the goodness of God, the faithfulness of God, and that sort of thing. And then coming back into a place of rediscovery, reconnection, finding community, finding healthy relationships to lean into. I think that's been really important to me. That ain't move, not like the caution about moving ancient boundary stones, has been huge for me, even in my own wrestles around deconstruction. And as friends were deconstructing, or the questions, or getting sent videos or things like that, that verse has kind of helped me sort of recognize, like, okay, there's a difference between deconstructing a Western ideology around church, and the ancient boundary stones of who God is, the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, where the gospel is centered on, these components. Okay, no, this aspect of church, that's actually just sort of man-made. That's a earthly construct. We can do with that or not do it. Like, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It's like, the difference between that and actual, like, places that my life is anchored on has just been really key. And we've gone through it, me and my wife have, I've personally walked through a lot of stuff. We didn't get into it in the podcast, but having to wrestle over the reality of Jesus and his goodness is huge.
It's really, that was so good. That's so awesome. I'm just gonna leave it more with what you said than me talking about what you said. It was just so good. But
Awesome.
Do you have any like resources besides like the Bible to share with people who are going through that? Any books that you recommend?
I mean,
Podcast?
yeah, I mean, the one that I'm reading right now, to be honest, has been huge.
Yeah.
This
What's
other,
Can you
the
name
other
that book
half,
again? And the other
it's
half.
called The Other Half of Church. And that's what it's called. Jim Wilder and Michael Hendricks. It's really, really good. I think for me, it's identifying these places of false connection and community in church,
Cool.
and the mistakes that were sort of around that. And
Yeah.
and actually it gets into where real maturity comes from and real spiritual growth comes from, and how to sort of build that neurologically. Like it's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And aside from that, I think, honestly, like I would say the greatest resource is finding a healthy church community close by that you can plug into.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great like podcasts and books.
No,
to
you're
read.
right.
It's
Because
just like,
you're right. Because if someone isn't in community, probably advice wouldn't just be to read another book and to listen to another podcast. It's actually like find a community, right? Like try it out again.
that love each other, that are walking out and wrestling through it, and
Yeah.
I think, I think that's like probably my biggest piece of advice would be that.
It's good, man. And like, and the values we talked about, to look for those, and to know that if you don't see those there, then to know, okay, maybe I should try to find a different place, right? Yeah. If I'm sharing my problems and they're like, yeah. I remember, sorry, I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna share a funny story. So I remember serving with worship, being a part of this like worship ministry, and there was this worship leader that told the group, because we weren't really feeling together, we were feeling like we're just musicians practicing together. So I want us to be more like a family, right?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to start sharing like prayer requests with each other and how we're actually doing before we go up on stage and lead worship, like so that we can pray for each other. So that it was still in the context of, I really want worship to sound good and we're going to practice, but I don't want to sound like a cold person. So I want to say that we're a family. I'm going to open it up to the prayer requests right before we go on stage. That was like the big step, right? So I remember I was naive, I guess, and I think the next Sunday I took him up on the invitation, and I said,
awesome.
So yeah, I've kind of been struggling lately with just stress of school or whatever. And I remember him, now I look back, I just think it's so funny. I remember him saying to me, stop it, like, stop it, Joe. There's no time for navel gazing. And everyone was just quiet, and like, and no one shared.
Oh yeah.
No one shared. Like, there's just no time for navel gazing. Stop sharing those kinds of things.
Anybody else have a prayer request?
Yeah, and then we went on stage. But so yeah. Anyways, that was painful in the moment because I was so confused. But now it's funny. But with that, to share to anyone else out there, if you've experienced anything that resembles that, probably not a healthy place for community. Yeah. So,
and it's not even that you can't be involved there. It just, it means that like you need to recognize where community.
That might just not be the place where you're going to find that community, but you can still help out.
Yeah. And I think that's helped preserve my heart in some of those instances, is even recognizing that I don't have to have the same level of connection and community with every person around me or everything that I'm functionally serving in or being involved in. I think, I think that sometimes we have an unrealistic expectation on relationships that don't. Now, obviously that worship leader should have handled that differently. We're all in agreement of that. I just mean that like, it's okay that this one thing that you're involved in is not your core community or your core relationship.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? That's what I mean. It's like, it's okay.
It's okay that you don't find it everywhere, but the important thing is that you do find it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, man. I love you.
Dude, love you so much.
Say hi to the families for us, and we have to just do this more often. Yeah.
I love it, man.